Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Scottish Football Show. Yes, we are back for season 2025-26 already. Can you believe, as Alex joins us, that we already are back with a new season? It's already that time of year again. Plenty for us to sink our teeth into. There's already been VAR controversy this weekend. There's been a red card as well and a penalty kick and all sorts of other things going on, as you would expect from Scottish football. With me this evening to go over everything is a man, first of all, who, credit where it's due, we have to say. I think I'm contractually obliged to say that. But I'm sure he'll be a very, very happy man after his side start to the season. Of course, is our resident steel man, Peter. Peter, how are we?
Hi, good to see you, Connor. Thanks for having us on. Yeah, I'll go into a wee bit more later, but happy, but understandably frustrated, as you can also imagine as well. But when you put your shooting boots in the right feet, then you can't complain about no winning football matches. But and I think perhaps the fact that in the first half, shooting towards the away end, I know that Wilf Master and Alan Brown were sitting down, I think, the second row, so perhaps your players were put off by their ugly mugs, and that's why we misfired our crosses and our last passes in the first half. But listen, it could have been a worse start, but I think we left some right good chances hanging there. But points better than getting beat.
Well, it certainly is, and I can see why you're frustrated, to be perfectly honest with you, Peter, because as much as a point for Motherwell against Rangers is always a good thing. And it seems over the last couple of years we became a bit of a bogey team. You did have loads of chances in that game. It probably could have been more. We will, of course, touch on that game a little later on. I've banked that for the end of the show. And of course, we have Alex joining us as well. Alex, evening. How are we doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I will preface this by saying I did no prep because I wasn't on the show. So I'm going to be going off the stats and everything, right? But obviously, Scottish football, the way it is, we know that there's controversy everywhere. There's been some big moments, not just in the game that Peter is absolutely itching to talk about, but there's been controversy all over the SPFL. I mean, it wouldn't be the opening weekend, would it, if it wasn't a controversial weekend? I mean, what is it? The VAR referees were took by fighter pilots, and they were taking through all this intense training, and they're still trying to get it right. So, welcome to the SPFL, ladies and gentlemen. There you go.
Absolutely. And listen. I know that Alex has definitely seen a few of the major incidents that took place, so that's half the battle. And what we'll also do tonight as well on the show, because we had planned to try and do a pre-season show and get some predictions in and things. Didn't quite manage to get it, so I'll get the guys to give me their sort of predictions for the season ahead. Who's going down? Who's winning the title? Who's getting Europe? Will Motherwell finally get the top six? You know, all of that. We'll ask those questions. We'll ask all of those questions as we go on. But let's get ourselves started then with what was the opening fixture of the weekend. In fact, actually, before I do, I should just preface, there is a game on live right now. Hearts are playing Aberdeen. We will do our best to keep you updated on the scoreline there. Currently, it is 1-0 to Hearts via Graham Shinnie on goal, and I can't tell you how happy the sentence Graham Shinnie on goal makes me.
So we'll interject and say that Shank wanted the goal disallowed bang on half time for the merest hint of offside in the build-up. He cracked in an absolute beauty, but when the first cross came in, there was a couple of touches. Then he finished it. It was one of these. The guy's left arm was offside type of thing, but it was. You know, it was unlucky. It would have been a belter if it had stood, but still 1-0.
Yeah. Well, as I say, we'll try and keep you up to date with what's going on there as and when we get updates. I'll even make a wee banner for the bottom of the screen just to keep ourselves on top of it. Obviously, if I miss something, then I'm trusting that the guys will inform me. But let's start with the game. As I said, it started the weekend. It was El Plastico, Peter. Well, one of them, because of course Falkirk are up this year, so we've got a third in the mix. But Kilmarnock v Livingston. Livingston obviously making their return to the top flight, having got relegated 2 seasons ago. Come back at the first time of asking. Doesn't matter how they got there via the playoffs, and obviously knocked Ross County down in the process. But come back into it, and you've got to say it didn't start particularly well for them, Peter. They found themselves in all sorts of bother. Stuart Kettlewell's men started very well. Obviously, his first match in the dugout in the Premiership for Kilmarnock, and they eventually surged themselves 2 goals in front of Livingston. And I've got to say, initially at that point, I was liking a lot what I've seen for Kilmarnock. There was a lot of decent football on display. What I would expect this Motherwell side, and I'm sure you can speak more on it, having watched his Motherwell side when he was there. But you would have been happy with how this game started, you'd feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously nothing sells Scottish football the world over, but in your first Premier League game, to start the new season off is Kilmarnock against Livingston. I mean, that's obviously going to set pulses racing. And obviously they played each other in the League Cup group stages as well. So perhaps they were kind of sized each other up then. But yeah, Kelly got off to a great start, 2-0 up half time. They probably thought at that point they would kind of see it out comfortably, but. And obviously, yeah, to give Stuart Kettlewell credit, I mean, there was times that in his 2-year tenure at Motherwell, we did play some good stuff, but obviously towards the latter part, it was turgid and horrible. And one thing which happened quite frequently was second half, kind of like not collapses, but we're in control of the game in front, and then second half you'd sit back, invite pressure. Lo and behold, obviously it took I'm going to say a fairly contentious red card and penalty. I dare say your thoughts on that, because I didn't see it initially, but then watching it back, that surely the first pull, the first bit of contact is the Livy striker with the arm round I'm going to call him Tony Stanger's son because I like my rugby. And obviously he was a Scotland rugby legend from 1990. His boy gets sent off, but he was fouled first, and I thought VAR would have picked that up, but after that, it was one-way traffic, and perhaps Kelly were hanging on for the point at the end. So good and bad, probably from both teams in terms of Kelly maybe relieved to get the point, Livy ecstatic with a point, but obviously concerned about the start, and perhaps Kelly concerned about how they kind of fell out the game and kind of sat back and invited pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, Alex, that this was one that Kilmarnock at home, you're against a newly promoted side, and a side who didn't win the championship. Historically, the sides that come up through the playoffs, they don't always have a good time. Livy, the exception, because they are the first and only team to do it twice. So credit where it's due for that. But surely, if you were Stuart Kettlewell and Kilmarnock, if you could have handpicked a game to get yourself off to a nice, good winning start of the season, it'd be a home game against Livingston, wouldn't it? With no disrespect to Livy, but you would have expected Kilmarnock to take 3 points for this.
Listen, no disrespect to Livy at all. They've obviously done very, very well to get a point out of this game, but Stuart Kettlewell's going to have to look at, obviously, what he said at half-time, because if you're going in the break against a newly promoted side, you're 2-0 up, you don't take the foot off the gas and try and protect your lead. You go for more. They're obviously hurting the fact that they're 2-0 down. They've gone in and thought, right, how can we change this? And I think if they didn't try and dig in and defend the 2-0 lead, I think that Kelly could have got 3 or 4 in this game. They looked like they were dangerous. They were up for the game. They were taking it to Livy. Livy looked like a newly promoted side. They were a bit worried going into it. They didn't create too many chances in that first half. But Stuart Kettlewell's got to think, why have I told the boys to sit back? 2-0 is one of the most dangerous scorelines in football. You never try and protect the 2-0 lead, because what happens, team get a goal back, and then all of a sudden it is hell to leather. Get that second goal and you're in a chance. Just so happened to be that George Stranger gets himself sent off, and Livy go, right, now we've got a proper chance here. They're down to 10. We've got a penalty. Let's not mess this up and show what we can do. And they did. So if anything, Livy are the more happier team that they've actually come at that with a point, because, going in 2-0 down against a tough Kelly side. Kelly are one of these teams that, they'll go on a 5 or 6 week run of demolishing everybody, and then they'll fall away. They did that within the space of 45 minutes. They demolished Livy and then went, right, your turn. So they've not done themselves any favours, and that's going to be a massive point. It's only the first game, but Stuart Kettlewell's got to look at himself and go, I can't be doing this all season. I'm just going to, if I've got any sort of lead, keep it going, because he's got the players to do it. You can see the team he's set up. He's got the players to cause problems. He just got that tactically wrong by trying to sit in.
In fairness, that was Motherwell's season last season. We did that a hell of a lot. I mean, I could point to 5, 6, 7 games easily where we decided to sit back and on a lead and end up hanging on, and sometimes we hung on, sometimes we didn't. Like when we played Rangers, you'll remember back in December. Obviously, maybe Rangers put us under pressure. It wasn't a case of us hanging on. It was maybe being put under extra pressure. We were 2-0 up at half time. And obviously there was VAR intervention as well. But if we tried to maybe get a third goal, it might have been finished. And 10-man Aberdeen we played in January at first part, second half did nothing, and you're like, go for the jugular here. And I think this might be a theme with Kelly. You might see this again, because this obviously seems to be the kettle where we'll get in front and then let's make it difficult. Don't give anything away. But then, as you say, you invite pressure, and then one incident that you're out with your control, i.e., a debatable penalty, and the whole thing is turned on its head. And then
defenders, though, don't we, Colin? We talk about defenders and midfielders getting high and they get a nosebleed. Is Stuart Kettle getting a nosebleed when he gets a 2-goal lead at half time? He's like, right, whoa, let's calm down. We can't be winning by this scoreline. Let's pump the brakes here and stop scoring. Let them have a chance. I'm saying, listen, I know that they're just up. Come on, give them a chance. Give them something to play for, and let's see it, because that's not the game to do that in. If you want to set any sort of dominance in the league this season, Livy's your team to be going, right, let's give them a bit of a doing and show them that we're a good team in SPFL, that we need to be pushing for getting top 6. And he's just, I don't like, there's a phrase I want to use, but I'm not, because we're obviously on the show, but he's kicked his pants in that moment, and definitely not what that do going forward, because there's going to be other teams here like Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs are not going to be a team that if they go 2-0 down, they're going to 2-0 up, are going to go, right, let's just sit in. They're going to keep going, and Kelly are going to learn this season they can't be doing that at all, regardless of who the opposition is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before we continue on, Jim Sloan has popped in with a £10 super chat. Much appreciated as always, Jim. The level of support that Jim Sloan shows this channel, this podcast, and all the shows with the super chats, by the way, is just phenomenal. And of course, he is the reigning Rabble Wrestling World and Scoosh champion as well. So that just, absolutely loving life as Jim. Colin, respect the fact. A lot of respect. I love the fact you hate defeat. Well, of course I do. You'd be silly if you enjoyed getting beat. You know what I mean? And so I do. Yes. Of course, that references a wrestling watch along that took place over the weekend. Aldo retained his title, and of course, there's a nice segue. If you want to take part in wrestling watch-alongs and watch-alongs of every single Rangers game, usually with that man at the bottom of the screen, Big Alex, and loads more besides the fact, you can do by becoming a member of the Rangers Rabble Podcast. You can just hit the wee button in the description. You can sign up for as little as $1.99 a month, literally a cup of coffee, and you get loads and loads of great stuff. Of course, there's different tiers as well. You can be a CEO member if you want to support us even further, and you get even more content. We cannot do literally any more than we do. There is not enough of us in the day, so it is well worth it. If you can't afford to do that, or you don't want to do that, then you can always subscribe and leave a like. That always helps greatly as well. So thanks very much. Alex, you're going to have to excuse me, by the way, at times tonight, folks, because I had some dental work done earlier, so I'm a wee bit tender up here. So occasionally you might see me rubbing away, just to you're aware.
He means the mouth, by the way, rubbing away on the mouth.
Yeah, the mouth. Yes, thank you, Alex. Now, we know from last season, Alex, and you're going to have to excuse the pun that I'm going to make here, because I'm going to do it, that Kilmarnock were no strangers to red cards. Thank you very much. Peter is
that the time?
Peter's off already. But this one here, it is controversial, Alex, to a degree. I think on the letter of the law, because he's pulled him back, right, and he's the last man, right, which is clearly when it's a penalty kick. The reason they've given the red is they've made the decision that the act of pulling back as the last man was not a genuine attempt to play the ball. Because bear in mind, double jeopardy applies if you're genuinely trying to get wrong. So if he slide tackles him through the back, he probably doesn't get sent off because he can say, well, I've tracked the ball, even if he wasn't. So, it's harsh, but this danger, and as you were talking about with the pressure that Kilmarnock were allowing to come onto them, does he have to look himself there and say, why did I panic? Sometimes just give the goalkeeper the opportunity to try and deal with it or make the save, because it's reckless for me.
I mean, how many red cards did Kelly get last season? I think it was our centre backs. It was what, 4, 5? Within like the first couple of months as well. So Stanger's obviously not done himself any favours here by getting himself another a 1-match ban for the red card. I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly tried to appeal it, but I mean, the fact that he's, as you said, he's not gone for a tackle. He's literally, there's not even like a wee tug. He's pretty much done a Chiellini to Bukayo Saka. He said, give me your shot and get to the ground, because he is trying to rip it clean off his back. And you can see it though. The issue, and I agree with Peter here, the issue is that he's in a tangle. He's in a headlock. He's managed to get out it. He's pulled him back by the shirt, just so it was, but he's the defender who's the last man, and the referee has decided that was the foul. There wasn't a foul in the build-up. That was your foul, which when you look at it is so bizarre, because for me, the initial foul is the one you give a free kick for the fact he's got him in a headlock. He's managed to get out. He's pulled him down. Yeah, you can't get away from the fact he has pulled him down. They've awarded it and sent him off. But I think Kelly have been hard done by here by saying that's not a foul. So we're not going to look at that because it's not a foul. The only foul was Stanger pulling down the attacker and then going, your last man, that's deniable goal scoring opportunity. So it's a penalty and off you go. So I do feel Kelly been a bit hard done by, but he has let the pressure get to him there and thought, I've got no faith in Strike coming out and doing anything to get this ball. So I've got to act, and the only act he's done is pull him down. I do agree. See if he goes for a slide tackle, even if he just clips his ankles, you're getting a yellow. Your team does get the penalty. They do get a penalty, but you're getting a yellow. You're still on. Maybe you then get subbed off because you're on that yellow, but you've not done yourselves any favour and given the referee even a look to go, is it? And VAR have gone, aye. I will say with who the referee was, I'm not surprised the red was given though. Being Matthew McDermott, you knew the red card was going to come out. So, he's obviously done enough to think, right, this is a red, boys, but I need you just to have a wee chat in the background, do your high pressure situation, show that VAR's working so I can send them off. And they've done that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did the VAR review show again, Connor, if that's like the first incident to talk about, because I'd like to hear why the having Stanger in the headlock wasn't a foul in the first place. Yeah. I'd like to hear why that wasn't, but I get that it was a penalty. See if he's not got him in the headlock and he's pulled him down, it's a pen. But I want to know why that wasn't seen as a foul, because it was.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, Peter. I'm just going to come to you, but I want to add a second caveat. It's a difficult one for me because I agree that the headlock and Stanger, it's bizarre that they don't look at that because it forms part of the attacking phase of play, and that's what Willie calls the buzzwords he's been using in the VAR review shows last season. We covered every one of them on here, so we've heard everything he said, and yet they don't look at it. But then even when you look forward at the thing, I'm still like, if you slide through somebody, even if you say you're trying to get the ball, you're more likely got a chance of injuring them than if you just give them a wee tug back on the shirt. So I think both ways here, Kilmarnock can feel really hard done by.
And there was no reset of APP as well, though, because you'll go on about that, but there was no resetting of that APP. It was all one build-up of play, so you can't go reset it and then the tugs happened. It was one motion. Sorry, Peter. On you go.
No, you're all right. Nobody's done. No, the interesting thing for me is that on the on-field ref did not give either as a foul. So in both instances, they have to look for quite a high bar to overturn like the on-field non-decision. But they've obviously looked at the headlock and thought that's not a foul, right? So, but there's not a high enough a bar to give that. But they're obviously think, there is enough to actually now give the penalty. I mean, I still think if you're Kelly, you're filthy about the fact that they didn't get the free kick first, because if that had been given as a free kick on field, and then the incident that followed after for the penalty, I don't think they would have changed that. They wouldn't have changed it and said, no, that's not a headlock. It's a penalty. They would have stuck with that decision. So I find it quite strange. As you say, I will be very interested to hear the audio and what was discussed regarding that just prior to the penalty being given. We have missed a very obvious thing, obviously, about Stanger making a rugby tackle. So I'm just going to throw that there. All right.
Fair, yeah. No, absolutely.
Runs in the family. Dad will
there was obviously an equaliser in this one for Livingston. Now, I must confess, this confused the life out of me at the time because I was able to watch this game live as it was happening. Because I had hopped on a wee plane over to France, but I was able to watch it, and with the second goal, it was good bit of play for Livy, got to say. Lewis Smith, a good drive down the byline, cuts it back across. Scott Pittman, Mr. Dependable for Livy. He is the last man standing from that squad that got up the first time. So, talk about a loyal servant to the club. He pops it in the back of the net. But there was some confusion on the channel I was watching on because there was a VAR check for a potential offside, not on Scott Pittman, but on Stevie May. Because what they were checking was, is he in an offside position and did he have an impact in the goalkeeper's eye line? Was he an impact in play? Obviously, they checked it. Eventually, they cleared it, although the commentators on the channel I were watching hadn't picked up that the goal had been given and they had actually chopped it off. So the scoreboard said 2-1 right up until the 90th minute. Then they changed it to 2-2 because they realised that it counted. But, Peter, your thoughts on this? Was Stevie May interfering with the goalkeeper?
Well, I think MD that's watched Stevie May's career in the last couple of years will know for a fact that he's just had no interference in play whatsoever. But okay, I couldn't resist that one. It's a tricky one because when the shot comes in, my first thought is the goalkeeper able to save it? Right?
Yeah.
Even for someone standing in his eye line, if he's at one half of the goal and the ball's in the other top corner, it doesn't matter. He's not getting anywhere near it anyway. For me, I think the shot was going in. I don't think he had any material impact on it. Although I'll probably come up with an entirely different opinion if Motherwell can see the goal like that, then I'll be raging. But then we're all like that. We're all entirely biased, aren't we? But if the standard is set as to what is allowed to stand and what is disallowed in terms of supposedly interfering with the goalkeeper's line of sight, if that's the standard and that's the goal that's given, then I expect that to be the same throughout the season. But I thought it was all right personally.
Yeah, I must admit, Alex, I felt very much the same. I could see why, if you're Kilmarnock, absolutely, you would feel maybe it could be given if you had the blue and white Kelly specs on, then you might be frustrated, especially given what we just spoke about with the whole attacking phase of play around the penalty. But equally, Alex, if you score that goal as an equaliser with 5 minutes to go and it gets taken off you, you'd be fuming.
Oh, you'd be sickened. You'd be sickened. You've done all that work to get back in it, and then the goals took off you. Because it's a great move down the byline. It's a great move, and as you say, Mr. Reliable Scott Pittman. It's a good strike as well. But I agree with Peter. Stevie May's never been a one to get any involvement in goals, so he's not done anything here to put the goalkeeper off. But I think you could probably say that this game was 100% a tale of two halves, but it was both Kelly on top and Kelly's fault for both. They've done so well to get 2-0 in front, and then they've just capitulated. As soon as they came back out, they've had the smallest bit of pressure and then fell down. You can say, though, that the officiating in the game hasn't done Kelly any favours, because on another day, that's a free kick to Kelly, so then there's not a penalty. Mm-hmm. And then you can say that Stevie May's offside, so then it's not a goal, and Kelly run out 2-0 winners on the first game of the season. But they've got to look at themselves and say, well, like I said before, why did we just stop? Why did we let them go 2-0 up and then let Levy right back in the game? So any other day, any other team, don't matter who you are in the league, you're one happy that you've got that goal to get an equaliser, but you're also raging to concede it in the manner you have. So you can see it from both sides. It doesn't matter what team you are. you've just got to look at that. Kelly have got them, nobody but themselves to blame for the fact they drew that game 2 each and went down to 10 men.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to argue that. Yeah, we'll park Kelly and Livy there. We'll talk a bit more later in the show when we get the sort of predictions about how we feel both sides will fare this season, whether they'll, will Livy stay up, will Kilmarnock be in the relegation struggles again. We'll obviously go through that a little bit later on in the show. Just before we do switch gears and talk about the next game that I've got on the list, which will be Dundee against Hibs. I do want to bring up Jim Ward. Jim, we appreciate you joining us, especially on Facebook, because we don't get a lot of you on Facebook. So delighted to have your company, and I understand the sentiment. But on this show, we do care about Hearts, because this is the Scottish Football Show. That is the only reason why that little scoreline at the bottom is going across the screen, and we'll keep you updated, because normally...
However, Jim, seconded. There we go.
Yes. Ordinarily, there wouldn't be Monday Night Football in the Scottish Premiership. It's only happened because the English haven't started back yet, so we're getting a couple of wee prime time slots. But so listen, I appreciate and hope you stick around with us. Right. Dundee against Hibs. Peter, Dundee had not had a very good League Cup campaign. It's not started well under Stephen Presley since I think, to the surprise of a lot of people, made the decision to get rid of Tony Dock at the end of last season. They get knocked out in the League Cup in a group that, let's be honest, they should have got through. I know Airdrie had a decent side. Alloa have had a fantastic cup run in pre-season for them, but Dundee going out in that group was poor. So they'd have been looking at this thinking, well, maybe we can bounce back with a home. Hibs, difficult opposition, third in the league last year. But off the back of European exploits, would be a good opportunity to play Hibs because they're not used to that. And Dundee, the architects of their own downfall, Peter, because initially this game started off very boring. It was already becoming an early contender after 20 minutes for worst game of the season and our end of season awards.
Yeah, the Motherwell v Hearts award from last season.
Yes, that is what that is now called. The Motherwell v Hearts.
By the way,
award.
just to update you, that game's still 0-0. By the way.
But with the very first shot of the game, not even just first shot on target, first shot of the game, unbelievably, in the 28th minute, Kieran Bowie, who's going to be so important for Hibs this season, puts them in front. But to say this was comical defending, Peter, would be a disservice to comical defending, I feel, at times, because I don't know what Dundee, the ball comes in, it's not a difficult clearance, it's put your boot through it and either send it out into the stands for a throw in or punt it up the park. Defender does neither of these things, and the attempt to clearance hits it off Ingram, the other Dundee defender. It bounces back to Kieran Bowie. Nobody closes him down either, they just sort of watch him, and he composes himself really well, and it's a very good finish into the near post from his perspective. But for Dundee's perspective, dear me, Peter, that's poor.
It's not good. I think the feeling amongst Dundee support, I think they're not very happy with the kind of what I would describe as like Stephen Presley looks like. If you hired a scarecrow as a supply teacher, he'd walk in. It just looks. He's not. Thanks very much. It does not. It wasn't a popular appointment being a former Arab to start with. And I think the way he speaks, I mean, I've nothing personally against him at all, but it doesn't sound like he inspires anybody. And I just kind of wonder, he's trying to make a lot of changes at Dundee. I think last season he scored a lot of goals, but shipped a lot as well. And perhaps he's trying to make them more pragmatic, hard to beat. But then when they give away goals like that, it kind of doesn't exactly help. And I think the change of system, everything, it's going to take them a lot of time to maybe gel, particularly their defensive systems. I just wonder whether Presley will get that time. That's the thing I have, because when he's already in the back foot with the supporters, you heard the boos after the first goal went in the first league game of the season. I really think he needs to have a few good games, pick up some results, or never mind giving away one bad goal against Hibs. I mean, it's 2-1. It was the most comfortable 2-1. Looking at the highlights I've ever seen, Dundee never looked like getting back into it. I think Presley has got to be a red-hot favourite for the first Premier League manager to get his jotters. And it'll be fan pressure that does it as well. But they look really, really shambolic at the back without having the escape route they had last season. Good strikers and goals in them. They don't really have that this time.
Yeah, and Alex, if you thought this one was bad, Dundee swiftly went, hold my beer, because it took all of 3 minutes for Kieran Bowie to double his tally for the afternoon and double Hibs' lead. Obita took a decent touchdown and got an effort sort of saved, parried by John McCracken. But again, the defending is ridiculous. The defender, now I'm all for defenders trying to win the ball and slide tackles, Alex, but you shouldn't slide tackle your own goalkeeper. I find that as a rule of thumb for all defenders really should apply. But somebody needs to tell Dundee that, because that's exactly what happened. After Obita's shot, John McCracken is slide tackled by his own defender, taking him out of the play, and then just delivering it on a silver plate for Kieran Bowie, who, I mean, it's a good finish again, but it's basically a tap-in. He's not going to miss.
These two goals are the epitome of FIFA goals, right? It's the bounce back for the first one. You're raging you've conceded that, and then the AI just goes and wipes your goalkeeper out, and you're thinking, what's going on? That's exactly what's happened here for Dundee, because it's the most comical defending you're going to see. And the fact that they tried to smash it away for the first goal, and it just ricochets off two of their defenders. Kieran Bowie goes, oh, I'll take that. First league goal, cheers. The second one, he goes, what happened there? That's just the freest of tappings you're ever going to get. The goalie's not just gone to sleep. He's been put to sleep by his own defender because he's been punched to the ground. And I think that's the only thing that you can say. They've just, the comical defending is going to be the thing that puts Dundee in such a poor position, because if they're going to defend like that, they're going to do nothing all season. The issue you've got with somebody like Dundee, they'll step up the big games. Now, I'm not saying Hibs isn't a big game, because it is, but you know the two, and it is 2-0. It is
indeed, yes.
But they'll step up the big two. They'll step up their game. See, for the rest of the league, but they just don't seem to do it, and that seems to be the Dundee way right now. They're scraping wins last season, and I have to disagree with Peter on one thing. The only thing Presley will inspire is an insomniac to go to sleep, because he's such a boring guy to listen to. I'm sorry, but he really is. He just wants you to go for a nap. But Dundee, they've lost a lot of good players, and they've not done enough to get them back in. I know they lost Lyle Cameron on a free, but they've done nothing. They've got no talisman in that team that's going to carry them forward. And I think that they are going to be serious contenders for going down.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that, Peter. They're banging trouble, Dundee. I think there's a lot of people who are frankly scratching their head about the Stephen Presley appointment. It came out the blue. We were surprised. We'd done a special podcast end of the season when Tony Docherty got sacked, where we had a very good conversation about it, and obviously the fact that Derek McInnes went back to Hearts, and I think we all felt that it was a wrong decision for Dundee. It was another case of jumping too quick, and I just think, will Presley even last to Christmas, Peter?
Well, that's the thing. I think I might have been on that podcast, actually. I mind discussing that and kind of thinking about on behind the scenes. But the thing, I mean, Dundee, obviously, like last year, Simon Murray scored a lot of goals, and to all intents and purposes, almost kind of kept him out of danger himself. But he had some players round about him that were giving him chances. They signed a few players on loan that were, doing all the running and putting crosses in for him when he was scoring goals. But I think this season, even a guy like him, who was maybe their talisman last year, might struggle to do that because he's not surrounded by the same quality that Tony Docherty had in an attacking sense. And I think they are going to be in trouble. And never mind Christmas, I think Halloween appropriate might be the end of Presley, because Dundee fans will probably say, well, he's been guising as a manager already. But he might be, never mind apples and oranges, he might be on to plums by that point. Dear me. You started it with the Stanger thing. Don't judge us for puns now. Come on.
Coming soon, ladies and gentlemen, the Scottish Football Show will be making its debut on Comedy Central. But Alex, to be fair, Hibs decided that, you know, if Dundee are going to get in the act of a bit of comical defending, then why shouldn't we do a bit of stupid defending ourselves? And of course, that's exactly what happened, because Dundee did get a goal back, but it was sort of handed to them. Poor Jack Iredale completely lost his footing, slipped. You know, had obviously been.
To be fair, he was away.
He was gone. He was away.
He was gone.
Never mind Steven Gerrard. Jack Iredale, I think, is just taking the king of slips there. But he slipped. Ashley Hay was able to get onto it, cut it back. Finn Robertson, who I think will be an important player for Dundee if they're going to do anything of note this season. He's there, knocks it in, 2-1. But after that, Alex, I mean, listen, David Gray won't be happy with the defending for this goal, no doubt. But after that, it never felt like a game where Hibs were nervy and they were clinging on for dear life, and Dundee were peppering, and you were thinking, oh, you know, they just want to get out here. It was as comfortable as you like, even at 2-1.
I mean, to be fair, it's a great goal from Finn Robertson. He does well to just slot it into the corner, but that was the only great thing about that game from Dundee's perspective. They had nothing else to even chomp at the bit. There was no half chances. There was nothing that even to worry the goalkeeper. I mean, when you look at, I was looking at it and I kind of had to take a double take, because I looked at the stats and I went, nah, surely no. 2 shots, 1 on target. You're at home, first game of the season. Like that's poor for Dundee. You know, Dundee are a team that will take shots. You know, that we've seen them before last season. They take shots from anywhere just to get something out of the game. The fact they had 2 shots at home to a Hibs side that are obviously trying to fight for a European spot as well, so you'd expect them to have a bit of tired legs. But it seemed like Dundee were the team that had the tired legs. They just did not look up for this. And I think it's probably, as you boys are saying, there's something in this with Stephen Presley. He just doesn't seem to inspire his team. Maybe put him to sleep at halftime, and they just thought, right, we'll just coast the second half, and we'll at least get away without any injuries, because they didn't do anything. But it's going to be hard to see what they're doing. I do like Graham's comment there, you know, saying that Cameron, Mulligan, and Tiffany are all going to be huge losses for Dundee this season. That's what I was talking about. The players that they've lost and not replaced, they're going to struggle, because the goals they got from Tiffany and Lyle Cameron were huge for somebody like Dundee, and they've just not been able to replace it. And I wonder where they're going to get it from, because you can't lump all that on Simon Murray and say, go get us the goals. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you can't deny as well, Peter, to be fair, and I'm sure Stephen Presley will point to this, I'm sure he will have done. It also doesn't help when, as we mentioned him earlier, your main man up top is out injured. You know, Simon Murray is their big player. But I think it shows why they need to find that depth. You need to have somebody that can step in, not necessarily doing the same job as Simon Murray, because you're not going to get that, but somebody who can at least contribute, you know, and pick up the pieces when he goes. Because I get it, it's hard for Dundee, right? And it's Graham Caldwell, our resident buddy, who joins in the show, some Run fan. We'll come to your game later, don't worry. You know, Cameron Mulligan, Tiffany, all big losses recently. Luke McGowan, when he left as well. You know, that Dundee side that Tony Dock got into the top 6, it has whittled away. So then losing Simon Murray to injury, it just compounds it. But is there an issue of investment there at Dundee, you know, to try and bring some more squad depth in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to maybe caveat the lack of attacking verve from Dundee into all the players we've mentioned there, and that's, you know, that's all their main attacking threats, midfield to front, and any team would struggle without that. I think there's absolutely no doubt it's an absolute necessity if they're to even be, you know, merely competitive. They have to bring in some squad depth. They have to get another talismanic type striker, because I mean, Simon Murray, I think he's mid-30. I'm not sure what age is, but I'm sure he's at least 32, 33, maybe older. I'm not even sure, but you know, there's you know, he's not going to go on forever, and he's going to pick up more injuries as well. So I think he really needs to get someone else in, as you say, that can lead the line, maybe create goals for others, but also perhaps put the ball in the net themselves. Because without that, they might eventually tighten up in defence and not concede too many, but they need to be able to put the ball in the opposition net. I say that's what got them out of trouble last year. They were scoring quite a few goals. I think they had They're a 3-3 with Celtic. I think they're 2-2 or a 3-3 with Rangers last year. They were scoring goals. They could score goals against anyone, but they were also shipping them left, right, and centre. But without adding any quality up front at all, they are going to struggle. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and it's not a case of if funds are available. John Nellums must make it available, otherwise, that it's not even going to be close as to who's finishing bottom.
No, I agree. The thing is, Alex, on the goals front, before we move on, I think Peter's spot on there. I think, you look at it, compare and contrast even the League Cup campaigns they had last season in the League Cup campaign in that group stage. And we were all raving about Dundee coming into last season because of it. They had scored, I think it was something like 16, 17 goals across that group stage. They were flying and banging goals in for fun. Yes, they were having some issues defensively, but they were almost getting away with it by sheer fact that they were scoring goals. The issue for a team like Dundee, Alex, is if you're still having issues defensively, and they are on the evidence of yesterday, and then you add that with not scoring goals, that's a recipe for relegation, surely.
It's a massive recipe for relegation. I think they're definitely going to be teetering on it. I did have a look, Peter. So Simon Murray's 33, so he's on the wrong side of getting any younger. He's not going to be the main man much longer for Dundee, and that's the biggest issue they've got. They've got no youth really coming through that they're propelling into this first team. There's not really many attacking threats, and the biggest issue, you both nailed it in the head. There's no investment. There doesn't seem to be any. I'm sure Dundee could easily go out and find a couple of young boys from League 1, League 2, down south and say, come on, up here. Look at what the counterparts just up the road from them did with Sam Dalby. Went to Wrexham, got Sam Dalby on loan, and look how good he was for them last season. I'm sure Dundee could easily do that as well. That's a newly promoted side from the Championship, and they've gone and got somebody like Dalby to just kick them forward. Now, it wasn't just him. They had a cracking team last season, hence why they finished in the top half of the table. But I think Dundee are slowly, they've been teetering for a while. We'll admit this, we spoke about this at the tail end of last season. They've been teetering with this relegation battle, and they managed just to avoid it. I wouldn't be surprised, Colin, if they're in this relegation playoff at the end of this season, because they're not looking like they're going to do anything, really. And I'm going to say it, I think that the team to go down, I know we'll talk about predictions, but I think they're the team to go down because they've got nothing in the way of firepower. See if they don't start clicking, January is going to be huge for them. I know the transfer window's still open, but they really need to be getting signings in, because if they don't, see the bottom of that table, see when you're down there, it's huge to try and get back out. Look at St Johnstone, they had a push and they couldn't get back out, and then ultimately went down. See if that happens to Dundee. It's a scary place to be down at the root of the table, knowing that the teams above you are maybe scraping points together and you're getting none.
No, 100%. We shall see. And again, we'll get to some predictions later. Although I think we might know where Dundee are going to be in the table in the predictions. I'd be stunned if they were in the top six. Put it that way. Okay, next on the docket list then. Another one of Sunday's fixtures saw Celtic against St Mirren, of course at Parkhead, Flag Day and all the pomp and ceremony that comes with that. And as Rangers fans, Alex, we have enjoyed that in the past, to be fair. I think Motherwell have as well, to be fair to them. Probably before Peter was born, admittedly, but nonetheless, this was one of these games, Alex, that St Mirren, and by the way, all the credit in the world to Stevie Robinson and the job he's done at St Mirren. I keep saying it in this show, I'm astounded that any time the so-called bigger clubs, your Hearts or your Aberdeens or whatever, find themselves without a manager, that they never seem to look in the direction of Stevie Robinson, because, and I didn't realise this until yesterday actually when they were talking about it on Sky, so fair play to them I suppose as well, but St Mirren are the only side out with Rangers and Celtic that for the last 3 seasons in a row has finished in the top 6. Mm-hmm. No other team out in the Big 2. That's an astonishing achievement for a club the size of St Mirren, a club that were laughed at when they first set out their stall and said we're going to be a top 6 team. Well, what would have done? So, I mean, Stevie Robinson, I just think it's tremendous what he's done. And again, yesterday, you've seen the hallmarks of what St Mirren are all about. Yes, they will lose games. That's, the nature of the beast. But the grit and determination they've got, they frustrated Celtic. They frustrated the league. I think a lot of people of a Celtic persuasion, Peter, would have thought, well, you know, we're going to be celebrating. It's going to be a day of happiness, and the players will be up for it, and we should just steamroll St Mirren. There should be 3 or 4. Not a bit of it for St Mirren. They defended so well. Yes, they got a bit of luck at times. That the goal with a charmed life. There was a few hits off the post. There was one that deflected, looked up over Max George, hit the post, then hit him in the back of the leg, and somehow went out of play. I must admit, at that point, Peter, I'm sitting watching, thinking, this might be one of those kind of days for Celtic, you know, and we've all experienced it. And then McGregor obviously got himself on the score sheet, only for it to be ruled out, which we'll go more in depth in. But overall, St Mirren will still be bitterly disappointed they didn't take a point, Peter. Plenty of positives for them in this.
I think so. Just to refer back to the Flag Day thing, we had the last Flag Day at Firth Park was the start of the 1985-86 season. We won the First Division the year before it. So, and I was definitely there. But we played Clydebank. We drew 0-0 at the opening day of the season, and after that game, we sold Gary McAllister and Ali Moughlan to Leicester for about £300,000. So there we are. So there you go. So yeah, I mean, listen, you'll not get me arguing any point against Stevie Robinson. Obviously, he had a great spell at Motherwell. I loved Stevie Robinson's team. He created kind of 2 teams. One was a kind of, I'm going to say we were quite robust. But I don't see, I had absolutely zero problem with that. That's what we were at that time, but we still had guys like Louis Moult, who'd bang the ball into the net. And then he created a team where we had like Jake Hasty when he come through, young Alan Campbell, young David Turnbull before he was ruined somewhere. And we played some great football, great exciting football. Robbo's done a great job at St Mirren. I've got nothing but respect for him. I love the job he done at Motherwell. He's an absolutely brilliant guy. And another Motherwell legend, Keith Lasley's the CEO at St Mirren, overseeing the whole thing. They're doing a great job, as you say. Top 6, 3 years in the bounce. That's superb. And the performance yesterday was the epitome of what St Mirren are all about. They fight for every ball. They work so hard for each other. Sometimes it's not always pretty, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, and they should never have to apologise for doing that. Celtic fans can possibly moan about the lack of entertainment, but that's not St Mirren's job. At the end of the day, it's a business. They're trying to get points to get in the top 6 again. Maybe trying to get into Europe. Might be the next plan for them, because we're in Europe at the start of last season as well, and came very, very close to getting a hard-earned point. But it's one of these things that only takes one moment to change the game, and they switched off that wee moment. Alex Gogic, so unlike him, kind of didn't get close enough to McCowan. If some get close enough, although he did thread it through the eye of a needle, in fairness to him, it was quite a finish. But he had a bit of time and space to take the touch and get the finish. But listen, St Mirren will be hell of a tough opponents for any team. We being Motherwell, for those who don't know me, we go to St Mirren, and I nearly said Love Street, go to St Mirren on Saturday, so I think that will be a really, really tough match for us. So, and I think St Mirren, I wouldn't rule them out of top 6 again, because they've just got battling qualities. But again, they can play some football. They've got some counter-attackers. Like the boy Ayunga, who come off the bench. He's strong, but he's fast, and he's a real threat in the counter-attack. And that, in transition, if you've got a guy like that, you're always going to be a danger, regardless of how much you're under the pump.
100%.
I love that comment there, by the way. For those that don't know me, I'm a Motherwell fan where the calendar's right above his shoulder. You don't think that was an accident, do you? You know what I mean? A couple of minutes positioning, do you know what I mean?
No, you know what the thing is though, right? I tell you, Alex, and Graham's in. Graham Collier saying, responding to Keith Lasley's comment, he's the foundation of everything good at a club. Absolutely. But what impresses me, Alex, is we were just talking about, and you mentioned about Dundee, maybe they should look at the lower leagues of England and say, look, come on up here and play well. That's exactly what St Mirren have been doing. When they've been bringing players, because they've lost a few players. Olasanya went to the MLS. That's a big blow for them to lose Olasanya. He was terrific last season. Him and Ayunga were, I mean, honestly, they were brilliant. I mean, we watched them live at Ibrox, and the two of them were outstanding that day. They really were. And so you think, well, how do you replace that? But then I'm looking at the list. So who have lost just this year, right? Kelty went, obviously, back to Kilmarnock. Berminski left. Kenny, Hutchinson, Taylor, Basseni, Olasanya, as we mentioned, a big blow for them. Richard Taylor, who's one of their more prominent defenders as well, went to Bolton in the 1st of July. But then you look at the players they've brought in and where they've brought them from. The majority of these players have came from England. So you've had Sobowale, who's came from Swindon, Dowu for Shrewsbury, Freckleton for Sheffield United, Jake Steele, who came from Cork City, Shamal George, who obviously used to be at Livy. He brought him brought him in rather on loan for Wickham, which I think is a very good piece of business in terms of goalkeepers. Richardson for Boreham, Killian Phillips on a free for Crystal Palace. I think that's by the way, he's been brilliant for them. What a steal since he came to the club. Then obviously Ryan Mullen for Morton, Richard King come in for Jamaica. Fair play. They obviously go around the world, and then Liam Donnelly, again, a good bit of business that on a free for Kelly. So you're looking at all that saying that's a blueprint for all the teams that are in and around a St Mirren and that kind of size of club of getting players in and out the door, not spending over the odds, Alex, but just sensible signings.
That's exactly what it is, isn't it? Sensible signings that are going to allow St Mirren to do that. You know, they're obviously going to frustrate teams like Rangers and like Celtic, who like to have a lot of the ball and will be attacking. They'll frustrate them. You know, they'll camp in, but they know how to take their opportunities. They were unlucky yesterday. We see against the teams that are around them in the table and below them. I feel that they're going to have a bit of a torrid time when it comes to St Mirren, because we've seen it last season. See some of the attacking play that St Mirren was able to do. They were lightning quick. They tackled, but they didn't tackle. They crunched you, and you knew you were in a tackle, right? But they were just able to fly forward and get goals. And they were a team that, you said it yourself, Con, and I love the line, they weren't there to be pretty. They weren't there to put on a show. They were there to do their job. They were unlucky not to come away with the point. But see, at home and away from home, if they get a goal, you are going to be absolutely stinked at a game for that remaining game, because they will know how to defend. They're playing in this like 3-5-2 that goes into a back five, and they will just sit in, and they know how to do it. Every man sits in that line. They don't move, but see if they even see a chink in your armour, they go, and it's every man goes. They all know their job, and I do love that Stephen Robinson just gets everybody. There's a different sense of calm right now at St Mirren, and I know they've lost, but you know, I like this comments, and I don't know if you've seen him after the game. He was said that you came here to be very defensive and set up in a defensive manner. He says, well, no, we made an attacking substitution at half time, but we're just against a good team, but we didn't come out here to sit in. We made the attacking substitution. It didn't work at that time, but we will show our quality. We're still in the window here, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see more business from a team like St Mirren before this window's over. But they have got a very good foundation. You know, they lost a lot of players, a lot of good players, but they will be a great team. And I think
let's not forget, by the way, Alex, when you talk about that, you know, they did have an opportunity at 0-0 St Mirren where they themselves could have went in front. You know, a chance that fell to O'Hara, I think it was, and he just doesn't connect with it properly or take it properly, which is unusual for him, because he is actually pretty lethal at times.
And that's like what Graham's saying, you know, when he's saying that they still need another striker that gives us something in the mould of Olasanya, who can get in behind the fences. Because the one thing they've missed with Olasanya is that absolute lightning quick pace. He just 100%. Got away. He just ball over the top and away he went, because a lot of teams, when they're camped in, they'll sit high. They'll sit on the halfway line. Olasanya was perfect for just punt a ball up and away he goes. He's one-on-one with the goalkeeper. And that's what you're going to see.
A striker like that, like when you're sitting in defending, it keeps the opposition defence honest. They can't just leave one man at the back if you've got somebody with that kind of pace that you can play a ball, you know, and you know, in behind the kind of like the full back centre half area, just over the top of the last defender, because he'll get onto it. You know what I mean? But in general terms, I think the best way to describe St Mirren and what Robinson does for them is he makes them greater than the sum of their parts. He builds a team spirit there. And I'm sure Graham would agree with that as well. I loved Robbie's job at Motherwell. I've seen him do that with us, bringing in players for the lower leagues in England, like your Louis Moults, for example. It was injury prone, going nowhere. Did a great job with us.
Curtis Main, he was another one. Came
Big Maino as well. He replaced Moult when he went to Preston. Did a decent job for us as well. And I would say Keith Lasley. I know Lass personally. He's an absolutely brilliant guy, and I'm delighted to see him doing so well at St Mirren. Although I'll not be saying that come Saturday when we're playing them. Obviously, I'll be calling him for everything. I'm sure
Peter will be
Graham will agree. It should be a good game on Saturday.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a small part of you, Peter, that will be looking at Stevie Robinson thinking, "Do you know, I wouldn't mind you back in our dugout again." Yes, Graham. I don't remember saying that. But I did. You're right. He is the singer from The Wanted, I believe. But yes, Shamal George. It has finished at Tynecastle. Quite right, Graham. Hearts have won 2-0. I think that puts Hearts top of the table. They always won by 2 goals, so that'll disappoint Hibs. They've just been hot-footed by their rivals, but nonetheless. But Alex, one actual incidents that did take place in the game itself, and we look at Celtic. Callum McGregor's goal that was ruled out for the handball. Look, I know we've got our biases, right, Alex, but we try in this show to be as unbiased as we can. And looking at it from an objective point of view, the rule book does state that the player whose hand it hits can't score the goal. If he does, the goal gets ruled out, which is why I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. The Greek boy with a long name at Motherwell who plays up front.
Apostolopoulos.
Aye, that guy. Which is why last season, when he scored against us with a similar situation where he's turned his body and it hits him sort of here in the arm, that counted because he didn't score direct from that. There was another pass.
There was a pass, yeah.
Yeah, which didn't happen in McGregor's case. He literally turned in. It was a great strike, to be fair to him, and put it in the net. Do you feel that's something that needs looking at? Because I have to say, it's the right call by the letter of the law, but even taking any bias away, I do find those kind of ones harsh. Because you'd be raging imagine we got a penalty against you for that. You'd be fuming.
You would, and just have a wee chuckle to myself there, right? Just a wee, but no, it is one of those instances where it is harsh, right? But you're gaining an unnatural advantage by striking your hand. And I think that's where they're trying to go from the perspective of he's gained the advantage by, even if it's the most minuscule amount of control, that stopped the ball, whatever, right? It's hit his hand and he's been able to score from it. See if he touches that with his hip, with his knee, with his foot, whatever, it's not going to go the same way. And I think that's why they're saying it's hit his hand, he's then scored from it. We have to rule it out. See if he's done that and then Luke McCowan's hit it and it's gone in. You're like, okay, fair enough, it's hit his hand. But they always talk about this natural position. Natural position, has to be natural position. But then, how can you be in a natural position, hit your hand, and then still be ruled out? That's the bit that it is weird. You know, hands down by my side, I'm not moving, it's up my hand, I've scored. But my hands are in my pockets. And it still hits your hands, and they're still going, aye, that's ruled out because you've hit it. It just couldn't have happened to a nicer team, you know. Just couldn't have happened, just such a shame. But it's something that they will look at. They will, because look at the amount of instances we spoke about last season on this show, Connor, where it hit a player's hand, and it was the most unnatural position, and a foul wasn't given or a penalty wasn't given, but then your hand's by your side and it clips your finger and then it's given as a handball. The inconsistencies of handball right now are all over the place, because the way that they're judging it, it's literally been case by case. There's not like one size fits all. This is a handball, this isn't. It's my interpretation of that is that's a handball because of this. That shouldn't work. It has to be one clear view for everybody, because then you eliminate all instances of bias. If you take that away, it completely eliminates it. If it touches your hand, it's a handball, it's a foul, right? If it doesn't touch your hand, then good. See if it touches your elbow, it's up here. That's nothing, right? But see the fact that it might touch your shirt line, and if it's an inch over, that's a handball. Then only in certain games, that's where you're going to be. You're going to get annoyed, and that's why we go back to the Stanger incident in the Kilmarnock game. That one incident is a foul, but then that's not, and it needs to be these wee inconsistencies need to be cut out, because it's a great goal, no doubt about it. It's a great finish, but you've got to feel hard done by when your hand's in the most natural position as an athlete it's going to be, and it's still ruled as a foul.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, the handball rule, and not just in Scotland, as to be said, but in football as a whole, is the never-ending migraine of football fans. It won't go away, and it is ever-changing, but does there need to be a look at this type of one? And as Alex said, either you just go, if it's a handball at all in the attack, then that's it, or you don't. Because for me, I find it bizarre that if Callum McGregor, when he turned, had then slid that ball through to Adam Ida and Ida scores, then that goal counts. Yeah. Now, you'd argue, Peter, that he's still gained the same advantage that they've ruled it out for in the first place. It's just that he doesn't score. Yeah. Would you be in favour of them just scrapping that and going, if it's a handball, it's a handball, and that is that?
I can see the argument for that, but then you've got a situation where you can, if player X rattles the ball from a yard away on the player Y who's in his box, there's no way he can move in time. I mean, that shouldn't be a penalty, because you
go back to the Hearts Celtic game last season where Lawrence Shanklin hit it, and it hit Liam Scales, who was literally 2-3 yards in front of him.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
but that's why I think the standard, the bar has to be different for attacking handballs and defending ones. 100%. I think for attacking handballs, you could say any handball in the attacking phase of play, the goal will be ruled out because you've gained an unfair advantage in that attacking phase. And because if it does hit your hand and it goes through, unless your arms are right, and then I can understand it. But I get why they make differences and allowances in each side. But this is a rule I don't think any football fan likes or wants.
It's an absolute minefield. I mean, I'm sure our St Mirren friend Graham that's watching, he'll remember a goal at Falkirk Park last year that Lennon Miller scored, and he dribbled it in the box. It kind of rebounded. A Mirren player I think it took a rebound. It hit Lennon in the arm as he was running in. He couldn't possibly get out of the way of it. The ball kind of bounced down, and he scored. And the goal was given. It was checked, and it was given. And there's other, you look at that, you think, well, we've maybe got a wee bit of a good fortune there, because the ball did hit his hand, and then he scored. And then you obviously mentioned, I'm going to call it. He's known in the dressing room at Falkirk Park as AP for obvious reasons, because his name's just too damn long. Imagine if, back in the day when they used to charge by the letter for the names in the back, you need to get a mortgage. But obviously, because he kind of the ball was rattled off him at close range, but if he had then gone on and maybe he'd then run through off that deflection and scored, the goal might have been disallowed. It's an absolute minefield. But I think the problem is when they've got VAR and they've got so many ways of checking these various things, there's so many caveats stuck in the handball rule, whether it's deliberate, whether it's a natural position, whether the ball is struck from such a close distance that you have no way of getting out the road, or if it deflects off another body part, like off your knee onto your arm, it's not a handball. I wouldn't like to be a referee. I mean, I give them stick, but I also know how hellish difficult it is with these things, especially in a split second when all right, even though you've got VAR in your mind, you can make a decision, but it's still, none of us kind of can put a finger on what the right approach is here. Because if you say, right, if it hits your hand, it's handball and that's it, but then there'll be some instances where it's he can't possibly get out the road there. Or it's deflected off two guys and then hit his hand. Why is that a penalty? The guys, when a defender slides in near the byline and it hits his trailing arm, he's clearly not trying to handball it. He's just trying not to sort of rip the back of his shirt open by sliding along the turf or the plastic in some grounds. Your arm has to be somewhere. I don't think we'll ever get an answer that makes everybody happy, if I'm completely honest.
No, we will not. Jim, apologies. I know you sent that message about 10 minutes ago, but we've been chatting, so we didn't ignore it. I just didn't get a chance to bring it up. But yes, thanks very much, Jim, and good night to yourself. Alex, moving on for that, because you could be here all day talking about handball. You really could. And the boffins who make the rules of the games, I think at times overcomplicate things. I mean, these are people who want to ban rebounds for penalties like it's cuppy in the park with your mates. I mean, ridiculous, right? But that's for another day. In the end, Celtic ultimately did get the breakthrough in 86 minute. Luke McCowan, who again has an impact coming on off that bench for Celtic. It is a bit fortuitous and a bit unlucky from one point of view, because it's not necessarily a brilliant shot, but it takes a deflection off of Mark O'Hara, which takes it away from Shamal George. Because I feel if it's not deflected, it's probably straight into the path of George, and he'll comfortably take it. You know, do that thing keepers do, where he'll line the ball and waste time. But unfortunately for someone, that wasn't what happened. It took the deflection into the bottom corner. Again, Alex, I come back to this mentality thing. I think when you look at Celtic, player for player, I don't think they're necessarily a brilliant team. I think they're a very good team. I think they're a team that, if Rangers could get their house in order quickly, could easily be competing with them. Maybe not easily, but could be competing, right? But Celtic have an edge over all the teams in Scotland, not necessarily just because of quality of the park, but because of mentality. They don't stop coming at you. They don't stop until that final whistle goes. And that makes it so difficult, especially for a team like St Mirren, who've expended all that energy in 86 minutes at Parkhead, which is quite a big pitch as well, to be fair, so it's not an easy task. But finding a way, didn't play well, but still got the 3 points, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That's exactly it. That's all that matters, is getting those 3 points. And I think that the fact that the word you used there is spot on, and it's the same with every other team. They've got the mentality to win. I'm not saying every other team doesn't, but they seem to find a way every time to put that mentality to work. The biggest thing that Celtic right now have got over a lot of teams, you could say mostly all the teams in Scotland right now, is that they've got a man just as good in every position to come off that bench. So now, if your midfield's tiring, you take off Nygren, you bring on Luke McCowan. If your fullbacks are tiring, you bring them on. If your strikers, you bring on. They've got that all over the park, and that's one of the biggest positives they've got right now, is they've got that mentality to bring players on and change the game for them. They won't stop. I mean, they didn't have the greatest of games. I spoke to a few fans of my work, and they've said the exact same thing. Yes, they had 14 shots, but for a team who are defending their title on Flag Day, you'd expect them to have so much more. They had 70-odd% of the ball and didn't really look that comfortable. I will say they didn't, and I think it's because they expected Motherwell to have more gaps than they did. They expected St Mirren to just show that. I did say Motherwell there, by the way, and I've corrected it.
You did. It was incredible, actually, the way you tried to style that out. That we went for they let Motherwell do something, but in the next breath, St Mirren were doing something.
Maybe that's why Celtic struggled. We're playing two teams at the one time.
But they've just got that. They've got that way of just winning, regardless of if they're having a good game or not. They've got that to get a goal. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. Obviously, Luke McCowan had a fantastic season for Dundee. He's went from starting pretty much every game for Dundee to having to try and fight off the bench at Celtic, and yet he's the target man for them. He comes off that bench and gets goals regardless. He's getting the goals in sometimes quite spectacular fashion. He's getting some very, very good goals for Celtic, and you wonder what a boy like Luke McCowan has to do to get a start, because the fact that he's staying on the bench and still coming on and getting goals is mental. But you've got to say, one of the biggest issues right now for a team like Celtic is that front three. They don't look like they gel at all. They didn't look comfortable. I mean, I don't know what it was, but Yang, Ida and Maeda just didn't look like they were having a good time out there. And you've got to wonder, are we going to see the heights of last season? Because obviously he was their talisman. He was the man that got them everything last season. but he just didn't look up to it.
You just wonder if in the background as well there's potentially interest in Maida. Surely there's clubs interested after the season he had, so you wonder if maybe in the background there's conversations taking place. But just before we move on, Peter, a guy I did want to mention, Alex touched on there, Adam Ida, £9 million Celtic signed him for from Norwich City. He had a perfectly decent season last year. I'm not going to knock his goal return last year. It was perfectly fine between him and Maida. They more than covered the loss of Kyogo, I felt. But he cut a very frustrated figure out there yesterday, and it's not the first time that you can see him do that. He has these games where it doesn't really come off for him, and he was offside about 3 or 4 times in the game as well, which as a striker, most of those offsides for me, Peter, were basic stuff. It's just about looking down the line. You shouldn't be offside. And then he had one where the ball comes into him, and instead of going first time and heading it back across the goal, which he should have done, he opts to take it down, which then massively narrowed his angle and gave Shamal George the chance to smother him and stop him finishing. And is that just a bit ring rust with the season starting back? Is it a thought for concern? You'd expect better from him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, you mentioned there it's day one. Perhaps when we get to day 6 or 7, he's maybe put a couple of goals in. Graham said it better than I could. There we are.
Goggins was brilliant, to be fair. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm gonna kind of segue onto that. I mean, you look at Alex Goggins and you think, would you think I don't want to? Would you want to sign that guy for your team? But then you watch him play for St Mirren, and he organises their defence brilliantly. It shouldn't work as well as it does, but he is superb, and he is a great reader of the game. He doesn't have pace, but he's reading the game in his positional sense more than covers that. And obviously, he did keep Ida very quiet. The £9 million tags are strange because obviously you guys will probably know Rangers buying a lot, players from England because they're playing for English teams. It automatically means you get an extra. It's an extra 2 or 3 million more than if English teams were buying for Scottish clubs. That's just the way they are doing there. But I suppose it's he scored a few goals last year, but it seems to be one of these guys that when the defences are tight, maybe doesn't do so well. But when he's got a wee bit of room, Celtic maybe countering on someone. When he's got a bit more space, maybe it's maybe a lot more goals coming that way. But it's early in the season. He's not had the best game yesterday, but if he plays all season, he'll probably hit up probably towards 20 goals because he'll get so many chances that he can't fail to get any less than that. But it was a tough one for St Mirren to take, getting so close. It might have been. I've always thought as like a supporter of what people might call a daddy team when you know where you are with a 3 or 4-0 spanking when you're never in the game. But when you get so close to a good result and it's taken from you right at the death, especially a jammy deflection, it hurts even more. They're not getting pasted because you think, well, they're a good team, they've pasted, it's fine. But when you get close and you start to think, get a wee point here, and then it gets taken for you, it's a sickener. But I don't think Robbo will be massively bothered in terms of he'll see the performance. It's day one. He think if we play like that the next 37 games, we'll be absolutely fine. But as well, he'll get plenty of chances and he'll score plenty of goals.
When you're winning 1-0 from the 14th minute and then you concede in the 87th, it's a bit of a gut punch as well, But we'll talk about that.
We're nearing that, Alex. We've just got one more game to tick off before we get to that. But yeah, okay, we'll park that game there. Evening, William. Good, nice that you join us. You're a wee bit late, but you can always rewind back. That's a good thing about this. Evening, Calvin. How are we doing? A regular here on the show. The penultimate game then for us to talk about this evening. Falkirk back in the big time. Alex, are the Bairns, and you would know all about Bairns, being that you've got a football team for yourself. But back where they probably feel they should have been before now. I mean, it took them 15 years and a wee escapade down in League One. But after back-to-back promotions and what was a phenomenal season for them last year, albeit, they really made their fans sweat for that final win to get over the line last year. I mean, going down to the final day was never in the cards. But you know, against the Dundee United side, Alex, coming back off a trip away to Luxembourg, the first time that they'd successfully progressed in a European match, I think, since the 80s, I believe. A long time anyway, at least 30, 40 years. So you'd have fancied Falkirk would have been bang up for this. I must say I felt they were favourites just because of that. But to their credit, Dundee United approached the game very, very well. Falkirk started so brightly, as you would expect in front of their home crowd. But it was Dundee United who actually took the lead. Max Waters, the man, to get it. Liam Henderson won't want to watch this back. We've spoke about some questionable defending tonight. Liam Henderson, unfortunately, has to fall into that category as well, because for me, he scuffed his clearance completely. But Alex, when I see it, and I know he's in the goal line, he's under pressure, it's quick. I get that, right? I totally get it. But you've got to just put the laces through that, surely, haven't you? And just boot it into Rose Head. Thanks for that, Jason. In 1999, they bet Principat 19-0. There you go. But aye, it's a poor one for Liam Henderson's perspective. But for Dundee United, I'd better start they couldn't have hoped for.
I mean, your thoughts as a defender, aren't you? Just get it out. Just put the laces through it and punt it away. Do not panic when you're that close to your own goal. Don't panic and give Waters any sniff, and that's exactly what he's done. But you've just got to give credit to Dundee. They've obviously come off a very tough away trip, and they've obviously went through that. So again, we spoke about it for Hibs. You know, maybe the tired legs start creeping in, but they managed to wave the storm of Falkirk for a good 30 minutes. Then they start to get in the game a wee bit. Didn't look like they were going to do anything, and all of a sudden, just before the break, they find themselves 1-0 up. So Dundee United looking like they were going to be the team to control this game, but it was probably teetering on one of the games of the weekend, to be fair, because it was a very good game to watch. Both teams didn't want to lose it. They were firing at it. But Falkirk don't look like a team that have just been promoted. They look like they've been in the league for a very long time, and it's great to see, because obviously a team like Falkirk probably are too big for the championship, and they're a team that should be in the top flight. And I just think that they didn't look out of place, and that's great to see, because I think Livingston looked out of place for the first 45, then didn't for the second half. But from the first whistle, Falkirk knew they were in a game, but took the game to Dundee United as well.
Yeah, do you know the thing? I will say, Peter, there is one thing about Falkirk that will annoy me this season, and it's that horrendous carrot that is on the front of their shirt. What on earth is that all about? I know clubs like Falkirk, I get it, they've got to get their sponsorship where they can. Crunchy Carrots is obviously who sponsors them, but that's an atrocity, because their tops are actually quite nice. But when you put that, all you see is just that carrot with a bite in it, and you think, what is is it Christmas? Is it Kevin the Carrot sponsoring them at Aldi? I mean, I don't know, but that will probably get on my nerves a bit. But they did persevere, Falkirk. They weren't deterred by going behind. They were still pushing away. Dundee United, whilst they were 1-0 up, did have a penalty claim in amongst all of this. Spencer and Sapsford collided. Brad Spencer obviously for Falkirk, Sapsford, Dundee United, just inside the box. But John Beaton, not something we see very often, but he blew his whistle, gave the free kick the other way, and booked Sapsford for simulation. Correct decision, Peter?
He was doing like a rusty deck chair. Absolutely horrific. It wasn't even a good dive.
No, it really
was
wasn't.
Horrific. And well-deserved booking. I was glad the referee dealt with it there and then, because it was dreadful. Do you know what I mean? We all get kind of like, very kind of like, sage and wise. Say, we don't want to see that thing in the game unless your own striker does it in the last minute. You end up winning the game with a penalty. Then it's like, it's part of the game. But generally, we don't want to see that, because it was embarrassing. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't even a convincing dive. The referee shouldn't have booked him. She just walked up and laughed in his face. Because that was dreadful.
Yeah, it was. But you're always worried though, Peter.
Sorry?
You're always worried though when in this country, when the ref blows that whistle, that he's going to have bought it and he'll point to the spot. Thankfully, he didn't.
But then you hope in that instance that VAR were looking and go, mate, come and have a look at this screen. Wait, see what that boy's done. And it would be ruled out. You know what I mean? Because that's the type of thing VAR would have been for. If the referee had been conned and given a penalty, there would have been more than enough to overturn that. You know what I mean? But it was a good game. Listen, I love the way Falkirk play. And I love the fact that they've pretty much sold out their stadium for 95% of the stadium sold out with home fans. That's great. I think Falkirk could have a good season. My only concern with them, in general terms, is what happens if they get a lot of injuries. How deep their squad might be. They look, Alex said, they look like a team that they've played, that they're a Premier League team. They've got a lot of players that have played together the last 2 or 3 years. So they know the system, they know how they play, they know each other's game inside out. They're a well-drilled, very gelled team. But I think if they get a lot of injuries, they might have a tough time. That's the only thing. I hope they don't. I hope they're very comfortable because they play some decent football. And you want to see decent football teams rewarded for that. My only concerns, I say, might be if they pick up some injuries and how they adapt to maybe getting... The last 2 or 3 years have not had many doings, if any. If they go on a bad run, does the manager hold his nerve or do they make changes to how they play? That's going to be the big thing. I'll be interested to see how they go. I don't expect them to be struggling unless they get a lot of injuries. Do
you know the thing is, Peter? I'm glad for John McGlynn that he's getting
absolutely
in the Premiership, because I always find it annoying when these teams who've ploughed so hard to get up, they get up and then they sack the manager that took them up because they think, we've got to go elsewhere. John McGlynn just seems like a very decent guy. I always like listening to him. I think he's a good manager, and I'm glad he's getting a chance in a top fight, and I hope it works for him. Listen, they got an equaliser, Falkirk, obviously. Brad Spencer again involved. He does really well getting into the space and puts it a sixpence for Devon Tate. And you've got to say, he absolutely rattles this. It's an absolute pelter of a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great finish. Falkirk scored a lot of goals like that last year. I quite often watched the Scottish, the kind of review show on YouTube through the Championship, League 1, League 2, and a lot of good goals you see week in, week out there. And Falkirk scored different types of goals. They're a different threat, in every game. That's like it's out wide, cutting it back. They can score goals in the air. They scored all different types of goals, and they're a threat in lots of different types of ways. I particularly like the boy, I think he got the equaliser, Ethan Ross. He scored a lot of goals last year. He takes up great positions. He was involved a lot at the game of the weekend as well. And I think if he stays fit, I think he'll flourish in the Premier League. As long as I say, Falkirk themselves can stay relatively injury free and keep playing the way they're playing. I think they've got so many young guys having a very experienced manager. I think these young guys look up to him, see him as maybe as a father figure, which perhaps helps in the whole kind of family culture at Falkirk as well. And I really hope they do have a good season. I've got absolutely no problem with Falkirk at all. It's a very good, well-run club, decent stadium, passionate fans, and boy, do they deserve to be back in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. They do, and I'm glad to see about. I remember Falkirk when they were up prior, obviously, and they definitely added to it, and I'm sure they will again. But as I say, Falkirk got well, Alex. But then we had 2 quick-fire goals here, a couple of minutes of action, a flurry of activity, as they call it, because Ivan Dolchek put United back in the lead. Again, he takes himself past a few tired-looking Falkirk challenges at that point, you'd have to say. Gets the better score, but it's a good finish, to be fair, for Dolchek. He done really, really well. But Jim Goodwin will be absolutely spewing, Alex, because his side getting himself into a lead with 20 minutes on the clock. Falkirk looked like they've started to tire at that point, and he'd be thinking, right, let's just, calm our heads here and let's just try and see this out. Bit of game management. Oh my God, we've just conceded after 2 minutes. What has happened? Before he even finished his thought, because Ethan Ross then gets the equaliser for Falkirk. Slightly fortuitous. You talk about deflected goals. This was very much a deflected goal. But, delight for Falkirk to get that point in their first game back and get off the board, because there's nothing worse when you've been out the Premier League for so long. You come back and you wait ages to get a point. So that monkey's off their back. But Yeah, Jim Goodwin, will he feel that's an opportunity missed?
100% he will. He'll feel it's an opportunity missed, and obviously he'll talk to his players when they get back in the dressing room, and it'll be something they'll talk about as the season goes on. But it's a complete lack of concentration. They've obviously got themselves in a bit of a high, getting 2-1 away from home. They're thinking, last 20 minutes we can see this out, and it's just a complete defensive switch off. Yes, it's a deflected goal. We're not going to get away from the fact that it is, but you've got to credit Falkirk have at least got in a position where they're getting a shot off. It's deflected in the net and they're back in it, but you can say that the tired legs were creeping in because they very much were. Falkirk looked like they were just right. Let's just get to 90 minutes because we're done here. They've obviously not faced the Premiership opposition for a while, so it is a bit different to the Championship. And that's not an easy league anyway, the Championship, but it's just a different quality. And a bit of a shame that they've faced Dundee United, who are on obviously a high of going through to the next round of the Conference League playoffs. So they feel that, but yeah, it's comical defending. It's a weekend of comical defending because they've just switched off fully and they've allowed Falkirk to get back in it. They've got that point, and I think one of Falkirk's biggest assets, and I don't mean this by any disrespect, the biggest asset is going to be their pitch. A lot of teams are going to struggle in that plastic park. Yes, we've only had Kelly, but we're having Livy, Kelly, and Falkirk all in plastic. They're going to struggle.
Yeah, it's now a third of the top flight that has plastic surfaces, albeit this is supposed to be the last season where that will happen. We said that at the start of last season, and then midway through Kilmarnock got the goalposts changed, but understanding is it will definitely, after this season, if Falkirk, Livingston and Kilmarnock all stay up, they'll need to rip up their pitches and put in a grass pitch. We'll leave Falkirk and Dundee United there.
Is that the time, by the way? Is it time to finish up?
Yeah, it's a bit late. We'll come back to that. Okay, Fir Park we go then. The ground which I work right next to, so I get the pleasure of seeing every day.
You lucky man.
Motherwell against Rangers. All eyes on the two new men in the dugout for either side, it has to be said. Russell Martin, obviously the new Rangers manager, and what's your manager's name again, Peter? I do forget.
And all the research you get through Falkirk's team and Livingston's team, and then the manager of the sexy Steelmen, you can't even remember him. Jens Bertalascu.
Yes, Big Jens in the Motherwell dugout. It was always going to be an interesting battle, this. From Motherwell, first of all, Peter, as you know, myself and Martin were at Fir Park a few short weeks ago.
Yes, it was a pleasure to meet you both, by the way. Yes,
absolutely. I'm delighted to meet you in person. I can confirm he does actually exist now, so that's always positive. He's not AI generated, but
what AI would generate this? Come on.
But there's still kinks to be worked out, to be fair. But we went to see Motherwell against Peterhead in that cup game. I must admit, I was lured into a bit of a false sense of security by Motherwell. I don't know if they were playing 3D chessways or whatever, because the Motherwell team I seen, the performance I seen on Saturday there, Peter, was night and day compared to that Peterhead performance. They were all over the place at the back against Peterhead. I know they had the third choice keeper, and I get that, but he was playing as a right back half the time, which was mental. And I thought, if they do this against Rangers, we'll surely pick them off. But it was not the case. It was really, really well drilled side that Rangers come up against on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, the pre-season, when the manager came in, he said what he was going to be doing in terms of like playing the ball out for the back, encourage players to get on the ball. If we make mistakes trying to play out the back and giving away possession, maybe conceding chances, conceding goals, it will happen. But it's on him. He wants the players to do that, be comfortable with the ball. The early games, we did do that. We gave away one at Clyde where he wanted the goalkeeper to be high. When we've got the ball, him would be an option, maybe 30 yards we go, passing the ball and about. When we gave away the ball and he get chipped, that at Clyde. The Peterhead game, again, we get caught a bit with a ball through the middle. And the way we played on Saturday compared with Peterhead was, we're trying to play the same way, but it was always going to be a work in progress. We're still a work in progress. the Peterhead game, we had a lot of the ball, but where players are getting used to each other. We've got a lot of new players midfield to front. And when it properly clicks, and I don't think it's properly clicked yet, that's the great thing about Saturday. I think we can be so much better. We play lots of lovely football. We're going to give away goals like Tom again playing the ball across there and giving away a corner. For me, it could have looked and thought like, push the ball at the park, then complain to his teammates because you're not giving him to pass to. He wants to try and pass the ball out of defence. We're going to do that this season, and hopefully most of their fans will be patient and realise that. Second half, we passed the ball out. We get through in Rangers press quite a lot, which gave us opportunities to get forward, get wide. The only thing we didn't do on Saturday was we weren't completely clinical enough. If it's a criticism, that's the thing. I think maybe final ball decision making, lacking ice in the veins, was what stopped us probably winning the game. I mean, I've been saying to people, it could have been a 3 or 4-1. If we'd scored a couple of goals, they'd get 2-1 up after an hour, then Rangers maybe come out and the game changes. It's all, ifs and buts and maybes. But the chances that we got, the positions we got into, we probably should have scored more. Jack Butland gets credit for a few good saves. Some of the Rangers defending, particularly Giga, put in a couple of really good last-ditch blocks, got himself in a good position to stop the shot being more dangerous on goal. So there's credit to Rangers' defence throwing their bodies in the way. If Russell Martin takes anything, they'll think the defending in terms of preventing good opportunities and last-ditch blocks, bodies in the line. He's got to be happy with that because that stopped some other opportunities for us as well. But I loved how we played, getting the ball down. We created a lot of opportunities. And
I would say that
more than deserved that goal.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The amount of opportunities, particularly the second half, and we'll come on to Rangers' performance shortly. Motherwell were peppering Rangers in the second half. At one point, I actually thought that at a half-time break, what had happened is they had both went in each other's changing rooms and swapped kits because Motherwell just seemed to dominate the play. But there was loads of chances created, and that goal was more than deserved because you felt it was coming. And maybe that's something to be worked on, is being more clinical, because I look at some of the chances, he had some absolutely golden chances. He really did.
The great thing I'm going to say about him,
also a few chances,
The great thing about Eli Just is the fact that his name lends himself to so many comments throughout the game.
Yes, 100%.
Starting from when he came on against Clyde, I was sitting with a good friend of mine. I know he was watching this, but I'll name check him. Keith Foster, a great Motherwell fan, known him for many, many years. We had a good laugh together, and it was like, that was just sublime or just off target. Literally the whole game, and we did it on Saturday as well. Just lacking composure every time, and it's maybe infantile, a bit daft, but it's football. You're there to try and enjoy yourself regardless of maybe what's happening. But he had a couple of chances, and the same with Tom Sparrows at the end. Whereas if they were confident with their non-preferred foot, he'd got a strike away earlier. Tom Sparrow, maybe he'd done left boot through right through it, but they're not confident in their other foot, and maybe that's something to work on your training as well. Get players two-footed, because that might have given us better goal attempts as well. But
and if he gets
a big against how to do his job,
and if he gets a harsh sending off, it'll be an injustice.
You're joining in, loving it.
Listen, I'm telling you now, folks. Strap in for this
Saturday, it would have been a just outcome. What do you say?
There we go, exactly. So strap in, folks. We are going to dine out on that all season when we talk about Motherwell. Trust me. And Alex is shaking his head, but he will take part in this. Let me tell you that.
Two of us enjoying this. Your man is just like, why did I agree to come in and do this tonight?
I'm just biding my time.
Good lad.
There we go. Yeah, there we are.
Loving it. Good man.
What season? Motherwell are brilliant. And by the way, can I just say, as an aside to that, not only do you have Motherwell with Just, but Celtic at the moment are looking to sign Pussy. So that really should be.
Unfortunately, I don't
think. Can you imagine
find anything funny to say about that?
Celtic against Motherwell, and we get to sit in this programme and say just Pussy. It will be great. But
we've got another striker we bought on the weekend, Ibrahim Said. So it's pronounced said, so you could have just said Pussy. The whole thing's limitless.
Beautiful. Graham is informing you. In case you hadn't seen it,
I've just seen that. I haven't. Yeah. I didn't see it, but thanks for the heads up, Graham. I'll certainly give that a wee watch.
Yes.
Possibly in the morning.
Order Arabic promote other programmes or shows on this.
Of course.
It's Premier Sports, we know that we're good and we're probably pound for pound better punditry than Premier Sports, but we're also not daft enough to not realise that they're clearly get more money and are bigger than us.
And furthermore, the connection hasn't gone out in this either. So
no, that is true. Our connection is better. Not for me last night in the wrestling right enough because mine's just died at one point. But nonetheless, Alex, for the Rangers' perspective, I don't know where you start. The first half, I thought the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought Rangers started well. They looked okay. Got that early goal, and you think, right, this is the start you want. A tricky away ground that Fir Park can be. Let's not kid ourselves that we always go there and hammer Motherwell. We have done a couple of times, but more often than not, it's going to be a hard game to get the 3 points. But you think you started the way you should. We had, at the start of the game at least, Max Aarons where he should be on the left. Tav was on the right, so they switched. But then they just sort of switched back. And then it was like, as Russell Martin said, like a default setting mentality went, okay, it's slow now. Okay, we'll just, that's job done, And yes, there were some moments in the game, and we'll come on to a wee bit. There were chances. There was, even in the second half, when Motherwell scored the equaliser by Rami, straight up the park we go, but Rami gets in, because all of a sudden there's urgency about us. Why he doesn't just leather it right across the face of goal, I'll never know. Because if you do that, either it goes in, or you can get somebody to take a touch on it, it might go for a corner, but he didn't do that. And as good as Motherwell were, Rangers were equally as poor at times, I felt.
What he said. I don't want to talk about it. No, listen, see the first, I'd say even half an hour, Rangers were very, very good. We started to see this new system that Russell Martin was trying to implement. We've seen the players actually try. We'll come on and talk about that a bit. We saw them try. They were implementing the plan. There was good passes, good connection. They were bringing the game to Motherwell. They were pressing when Motherwell were trying to do what Peter was saying and pass out the back. They were in their face. And then they got the goal from a set piece, which I was like, oh my God, what have Rangers just done? We scored from a set piece. Is this a new season? And then all of a sudden they went, but that says 1-0, right? Let's just capitulate and do nothing that we've been taught. We'll go back to default mode of let's just walk about. We'll swap positions. We'll stop trying. And then, wait a minute here. Motherwell have scored. Right, try again. And it's like, by that point, it's too late. I will say that, I'm making it sound like it was all Rangers. Motherwell were 100% the better team in this game. And if anything, they're actually been robbed of the 3 points because Rangers were good for spells, but Motherwell just dominated. They had a lot more shots. I will say that it was contender for miss of the season. I think the ball came in and the Motherwell boy is standing at the post and he still headers the ball over the bar, and I'm thinking, how have you missed it? Butland has moved out the way and you've still missed the target. But Tom Sparrow's chance late on in the game, that puts you 2-1 up, and it's the epitome of a nosebleed. He was too high up and he's panicked because he's almost 1-on-1 and he's gone, what did they do? And then stopped, and then the defenders have caught him. And I just think that Rangers really need to shape up here and smarten up. And it's exactly what Russell Martin said. The mentality of the players, they went back to default setting. They didn't try because 2 players came on and had better opportunities than the other 11 men that were on the park at the start of the game. Dessers came on that's had his critics for the past 2 seasons now, and Lyle Cameron came on and actually looked better than every one of our other players because they were just going for it. And I think that Russell Martin...
The thing is, Alex, that's a damning indictment, isn't it? Because that's a young lad who's just signed in Lyle Cameron, and a guy in Cyril Dessers who may well be on his way out the door. I mean, Russell Martin, and I don't know if you feel he was right to do this, but he said that when he was in the changing room, he was basically telling them they needed to check their egos because he was saying, listen, only Cyril Dessers has had an offer for any club this summer. He's the only person anybody's interested in. That's him sending a clear message. That see the lot of you that think you're the bee's knees, you really know, because nobody's interested in you. Whereas Cyril Dessers does have his suitors now. That's partly when you score 25 goals in a season, that's going to happen. But we have one thing, as much as we've criticised them, Alex, I don't think anybody has ever questioned Cyril Dessers' mentality in terms of he does go out there, he does run himself to the ground, he does give everything. His quality is the issue at times, but his mentality is. I'd have 100 Cyril Dessers with that mentality on the park, quite frankly, because that's what we think. That's what Russell Martin is the message he's sending. He needs to show that with his actions. Now, not so much tomorrow night. I think more the weekend coming against Dundee because Europe takes care of itself. But he's going to have to send a message and start saying, right, see you, Tav, you don't just start because you're James Tavernier. You go to bench. We've got Max Aarons in, very good defender. You know, you can do Dessers, I think, needs to start as well. And you've got young Finlay Curtis, who has banged in a couple of goals in pre-season. So, listen, it's strong out the gate for Russell Martin. But if this is a rocket up their arse, they need this early on. I'd rather they get it done now rather than wait till you're 12 points behind in September, October, and the league's already gone.
One of the biggest things, Connor, we've seen, and I think you'd agree on this, Peter, one of the biggest things we've seen from Rangers over the past few years now is that a manager will say, I'm protecting the players, they're trying to build into a new system, they're trying this, we're doing this, there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of changes. Russell Martin's come in, and they do that when they're on the verge of getting sacked. See, when they've lost the fans, they look like they're getting sacked, there's no coming back, they're out of competitions, and they're trying to save their job. They then throw the players under the bus. Russell Martin's not necessarily throwing them under the bus. He says, listen, see, if you've got that big an ego that you're not going to do what as your manager, what I tell you to do, then there's the door. Russell Martin's laid in a marker here because all the managers that have left, some of them have left because they've not been good. Some of them have left because they've been absolutely woeful, right? But these players are staying here because they've got such cushy contracts. They don't need to go anywhere else. Robin Propper is a prime example. He wasn't going to leave because Rangers wouldn't pay up the remainder of his contract. He'll happily sit on the bench because he doesn't want to leave. A lot of these players will happily do that. And I think Russell Martin's lined in a market here of saying, I'm your manager here, I'm the coach. See, if you're not going to perform, you'll sit in the stands. And that's a prime example, you know. Diamande was woeful, wasn't even in the game. Tav wasn't in the game. Dibble was probably he has got a lot of critics, probably one of our better players yesterday at the weekend there. Danilo, nowhere near the game. Max Aarons cannot defend on that left-hand side. He just gets caught out, and it's because he's not a left-sided player. He plays on the right, but we're not keen on taking in Jeffrey. He's going to have to change it. I do agree that it won't be tomorrow night because, you know, we've obviously got the European squad. He's very limited on how many changes he can make in terms of getting that in. But see if we come on the pod, because I'll obviously be doing a watch-along on Saturday with ourselves, Connor. See if we come in on Saturday, right, and we see the exact same team sheet, or you see maybe Ant-Man in there, or you see only Dessers, then all that talk that he's had is completely cheap because he's then gone back and every word he spoke about, he needs to show that what I've said is going to be a marker. See, if you don't do what I tell you, you don't play, and you have to work your way back in it by showing it in training. And I think that we got a bit of a wake-up call because we've had all this success in pre-season. We had a good tie against Panathinaikos getting through. And listen, Motherwell and Fir Park is never an easy place to go. It's one of Rangers' bogey teams, in all honesty. We go there and we either have a good game or we get taken to the wire, and Motherwell show that they're a great side, right? Yesterday, the weekend there, we just got shown that all your talk is cheap if you can't put it into action. These players were riding on a high, and then they've just went and they shot the bed. They really did, and that's exactly what happened. They got the goal, and then because a little bit of pressure came from Motherwell, they reverted back to what they know, completely ignored what they were told, and thought, right, what do we do now? And Motherwell went, they're here for the taking, let's do it. And that's exactly what they needed to do, though, Peter. They went, they're here for the taking, let's show it, and see if they had their shooting boots on. Rangers are taking a hammering because they had so many opportunities that Motherwell, if they take their chances, were getting hammered. And it's as simple as that. And I think Motherwell will count themselves unlucky. See if they do that against other teams, Motherwell will close games this season. They really, really will.
What a chance to win it at the end for Motherwell.
I think. I mean, you mentioned, you referenced, Alex, as well, the chance for Tom Sparrow at the end. A couple of things on that. Obviously, I mentioned that he did he did score a few goals last season, including scoring a similar one on the other side of the pitch at Ibrox when we won 2-1 the second half of last season. The other thing, it wasn't picked up in the telly, but from my position, when we counter-attacked at that point, when our goal scorer, Big Manny Longello, brought the ball at the defence, passed it to Ibrahim's side on the left-hand side, Mazranisi was making a break up the middle, and he was kind of like getting pulled back in the centre circle. It wasn't in the telly. I had a great view of it. Rangers player, I couldn't see what Rangers player was. Basically stopping him running into support. So perhaps if with an extra body in attack, we might have had more room. We might have another option to pass to win it. But the Rangers defender did, exactly what he had to do. He protected the goal and stopped us getting another body forward. The general point, I liked your kind of discussion there about players and teams and attitudes and egos and everything. In very general terms, this isn't just about Rangers, but I think the most dangerous thing any manager can have is a squad where too many players think their place in the team is guaranteed and they don't need to look over their shoulder worrying about the jersey. Yep. And I think what Russell Martin in this instance would probably have is fresh eyes. He has got no loyalty towards any of the players, and if he does stick to his guns as you suggest, then he has to carry that through. And if some players don't do it, then he has to say, right, listen, I don't care who you are. There's a guy there waiting for your jersey. You're on the bench. He's starting the game at the weekend. That he has to do that. And maybe he's doing that just to give some players a fright. I suspect because it's a European game coming up, Rangers players will be fully up for it and they'll be focused for the full 90 minutes. And for Scottish football, and I mean this genuinely, I hope every Scottish team has a good run in Europe and they get through, including the Old Firm. Maybe cheekily, as a fan of one of the Dundee clubs, we get the best of both worlds. We can say it's great for Scottish football and the Old Firm get through, but we can have a wee chuckle if they get papped out. But that's, you guys do that with Celtic and that as well.
Listen, the fact is that we'll do
that, but I hope every Scottish team has a great run in Europe because it's great for us all.
The thing is, Peter, and I'll give you the last word on this way with Motherwell, but we're in a dire situation when it comes to the coefficient if some of the clubs don't do well this year, because seen a graphic the other day there that Wilf had raised on the show, I think on Friday night, that is frightening to look at, where if we slip, which we could do, then we're in a situation where at the start of 27-28 season, the champions will go into the second qualifying round of the Champions League. Second place will go into the Conference League. The Scottish Cup winners will go to the Europa League, although I assume that if the champions also win the Scottish Cup, then second place would go to the Europa League spot. But that's dire for Scottish football. That is absolutely, we need better. And that's something we'll cover at a later date, and let's hope we don't get to that point. But Peter, on Motherwell, Longello obviously scored the goal. That boy's pace is frightening, by the way. Absolutely frightening. Even in the Peterheadian, me and Martin had pegged him straight away, because we just see his face when, geez, that guy can fly. And the finish against Peterhead was brilliant. The finish weekend was brilliant. So he's got that. He's no striker. He's sort of a wing back.
He's a left back. Right?
Yeah, it's incredible, honestly. Put him up front, I tell you. But in terms of Motherwell's prospects this season, Peter, where are you at? Do you think top six, real chance, real possibility?
It's tricky because I've used the phrase earlier, work in progress, and I still fully believe that. We'll lose games this season trying to play the way we do, playing the ball out for the back. We'll get caught in possession, we'll concede goals, and we'll lose games. I'm prepared that that's going to happen. I'm not happy about it, but I'm realistic enough to know it's going to happen. We're not going to win every game, and we're going to make mistakes and lose games. But if in doing that we get better at it, and we start winning more games, then I'll be happy. I want to watch us play some decent football. I thought we played a lot of good football at the weekend. In fairness, I thought Rangers, for parts of it, played some good football in a similar way, passing it out for the back. We working wee triangles, working space, and I thought technically it was a good game to watch with a good bit of excitement. As the second half wore on as well, with us going for it and Rangers trying to counter attack, there was a lot of good things to take from it. But from a Motherwell perspective, I'd love top six. But if you tell me we finish 7th or 8th, but go on and win one of the cups, I suppose I'd grudgingly accept that as well. But It's been a while. I'll tell you a stat, actually. We won the Cup in 1991. The last time we won the Scottish Cup before that was 39 years before, and I thought, my God, that's such a long time. We're 5 years away from being in that position again, which shows you how old I'm getting. We don't win a Cup in the next 5 years. It'll be another 39 years from when it was 39 years before, which is no wonder I'm grey, look at me. But hopefully, we don't need to wait that. But I'm enjoying the way we play football. I'm not going to make wild predictions. Our top 6 would be great, and a wee shot at Europe. Because obviously, as you're saying there, the scary thing is the way we're playing right now, and this is perhaps tongue in cheek. We don't, with champions coming in early, the way Motherwell are playing. If we win that, when we become champions, I want us to have a good shot at the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? Not have to go in the third qualifying round or anything like that. You know what I mean? But seriously, I mean, I'd love us to have not been any kind of relegation danger, and I hope that we have a good enough season that we can continue to play this football. I think we will. I think we probably need a ball playing centre back that would help bring the ball, kind of link between the midfield and the defence. Somebody, a good ball player, centre half to come out. I probably replace Lennon Miller when he goes, another deep line midfielder. I thought Elliot Watt on Saturday for us and Lucas Fattinger in midfield were superb. A bit of strength in there as well, be good. And not asking for much, but a dead-eye striker. I thought AP did all right. He ran his heart out. He worked his socks off. But a couple of times, get the shots off, a wee bit earlier. And who knows, it might have been a better day for us. But if I'd walked out there on Saturday and we'd lost 1-0, I'd have been gutted with the result, but I'd have still been delighted with the performance and not been downhearted. And the fact of how we played. And that's the thing. The point was great because it was the most deserved equaliser that's ever been seen on TV, I think. But we'll have ups and downs. I'll be happy with mid-table and some good runs in both cups and getting a ton of money for Lennon Miller in the next fortnight.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm aware, folks, that we're approaching the 2 hour mark, but it is the first show of the season, so there's been a lot to cover.
That's what happens when you get me on interjecting.
We are almost at an end, and there's 9 minutes to get to 2 hour mark.
Ian's point, yes, thank you. I'm fairly.
A very quick thing, Alex, very, very quickly, that we'll just touch on before we get quick fire predictions, and then the show will be done, hopefully by the bang on too. That would be nice. Hearts shareholder and owner of Brighton, Tony Bloom, has made some comments. Now, Hearts obviously beat Aberdeen 2-0, as we had seen earlier on this evening. He has certainly laid down his intentions very, very clearly with his comments. He is saying that he is warning that he is here to bring down the big two, meaning, of course, Rangers and Celtic, that he is looking to take Hearts to a league title. As Kieran Mott touches on. What do we make of that, Alex? Because that's a bold statement. And listen, I'm all for having somebody else properly competing for the league title. I don't mind a 3-horse race. Absolutely, that's what you want. It makes a great win of a league. If you can believe. But how realistic is that? Tony Bloom's an intelligent man, and you only need to see what he's done at Brighton to know that. But Hearts don't, at this point in time, have the resource or funding available to do it. They're going to need to be finishing third this season again, getting European football and bringing more money into the club and investment, if that's even going to get close to happening.
Yeah, Tony Bloom is obviously, he's not talking about it happening in the next season or two. It's going to be a long-term project for somebody like Hearts to be able to overturn it. They can't just go out and spend 15-20 million when they're not bringing that kind of revenue in. Yes, somebody like Tony Bloom's got that kind of money. He could spend that and it wouldn't even faze him. But he's obviously got to be thinking, he's got to give some sort of backing. It'll be drips and drabs until Hearts can start getting to a position where they spend it. But for how many years now has this league been a 2-horse league? Folk talk about that consistently, right? See if you can get your Aberdeen, your Hearts, your Hibs, your Motherwell getting up here and actually showing what Scottish football can do, getting the potential up there. I don't see it being a bad thing that Hearts could be challenging for a league title, but it's all good in saying that in papers and saying that on podcast, radio, whatever, right? It's going to be your performances on the pitch. Now, they've started off very, very brightly with 2-0 over Aberdeen, but Hearts are going to need to put in some very, very good, solid performances to get themselves in a position where they even get third, because first and second has pretty much always been the top two of Rangers and Celtic, right? But see, third to seventh, that is so competitive, it's unbelievable. And nothing bar third, maybe fourth if they can get a cup, is going to be enough for them, because they need that European football to start getting the revenue up so that they can start spending this money. You're maybe talking, 5-6 years before they can even start thinking about getting a league, because they need to be not just getting to the qualifying stages, they need to be getting through the qualifiers and actually getting to the league phase before the money actually starts having an impact. Because what is it? Is it 5 million you get for getting to the league phase? That's not enough to start competing. They need to be in and about the league phase, getting the wins, getting through, even if it is Conference League. Look at Chelsea last season. What was it? 4.3 million they won for winning the Conference League. Yeah, the amount that Slavia Bratislava got for getting absolutely hammered in the Champions League was like 19 million or something. So it's the comparison is crazy, and that's what they're trying to compete with. You know, it's like Rangers, Celtic try to compete with Premier League teams. The gulf is huge, and right now between second and the rest of the league, the gulf is huge because they've been in Europe consistently for years now. That's going to be the biggest issue for every other SPFL team. Is you're not needing to dethrone first and second. You're needing to get yourself in a position to get Europe, to get the money to even compete with the teams around you, to then start thinking, how do we move up? So Tony Bloom is right for doing that. He's putting obviously a light on our league, but in a different team. You know, you talk to anybody that's not from Scotland, and they're going to tell you Rangers and Celtic, they'd struggle to name other teams. And that's no disrespect to any other team, right? They would struggle to do it. But see somebody like Tony Bloom shining a light on the other teams in the league and saying, I want to dethrone the dominance of those two. It's not a bad thing, and I'm all for it. I really am.
Well, the thing about it is, look at the job he's done at Brighton. Brighton were an unfashionable team. Great managers there. They brought in players that are not heralded, but they moulded them into a great team. And if he can do that on a smaller scale at Hearts, without the madness of the last guy that claimed he'd win the league, Mr. Romanoff, I think it wouldn't take a huge amount of time, maybe 2-3 years, to mould a team that was capable of challenging. The difficulty is, and when Mark McGee's first spell at Motherwell, when he built a brilliant team to watch. He says it's difficult to you can maybe over the course of the season get ahead of one of the old firm, but it's damn difficult to get over both of them. But I think if in Hearts' case, they use the Brighton connections, the Brighton methods, without the Lithuanian madness that happened about 20 years ago, I think they could potentially have a shot at it, building up gradually through European money, as you say. 4.3 million to Hearts for Conference League would be astronomical in comparison to Chelsea. That's probably a weekly wage bill to them. But I mean, more teams challenging for honours is a great thing.
Hey, there's the first yellow card that took 2 hours, but then
listen, it is in there. A Lithuanian oligarch couldn't get between the old firm, so it's Tony Bloom. But he might be more sensible. Right, okay. All it remains for us to do then. There's your current league table. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Thankfully for us, because I'm telling you now, if that league table finishes like that at the end of the season, I think I'm going to be done with football, Alex. Quite frankly.
Aberdeen are getting relegated in this.
The Rangers are finishing 9th, Peter. I think by any standard and any metric, that would be cataclysmic. For Rangers, it would be the apocalypse. But since we've got the league table up, let's get your quick predictions then. Give me your 1 through 12 for this season. Peter, we'll start with you.
Oh, good. No pressure at all. You won't like who I'm putting at number 1, but you probably might be putting them there yourself if you're being honest. Celtic, I think, will be top. That's probably the most boring prediction. But there we go. Rangers will be second. I don't know what the gap will be. I'm not doing that. Third, I think I'm probably, given the discussion I've had, I reckon you might see Hearts kind of third place. And after that, you're looking Hibs, Aberdeen, and I'm going to be bold and say the Steelmen make up the top 6. You know, then you're into the kind of bottom half of the table and kind of going down towards the bottom. I think I'm going to, at the moment, you've got to say Dundee look at certainties, but they've got a lot. What? I'm getting red carded here. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why, but anyway. That was because I used a certain phrase to describe Rangers and Celtic together. Is that what it was? Is that what it was? Well, that's what we call them. Do you know what I mean? So I could, you know, 2 cheeks for the same arse. I could say that. Oh, there we go.
Yes,
Dundee bottom. I'm going to say Livy or Falkirk second bottom. Falkirk won't be second bottom if they avoid injuries. They'll be at least be 9th or 10th. Kelly around about that kind of place as well, I think. But that's Dundee to go down. Your nearest and dearest to be champions. But I think what I will say is, looking at Celtic and Rangers, I don't think the gap will be anywhere near as big this year. It may well come down to Old Firm. They've done it again. Games again. It's habit. Seen it for 40 years. Give me a break.
it's the Old Firm, kid.
I think it'll be.
We're on the side that still calls it the Old Firm. It's the other side that want to play funny buggers.
It's one of them things. I think they'll be a lot tighter this year.
Yes.
I think if Russell Martin sorts out the guys that perennially have let Rangers down in big games, and he's allowed to make the necessary changes, he'll run Celtic a damn sight closer this year. But I still think Celtic will win it. I'm going to make up a prediction that that's the only trophy Celtic will win. How about Motherwell and Rangers winning a cup each? Could you cope with that? Can we agree? I don't mind what one we get. I'll take the League Cup. Not fussy. It's been 35 years since we won a cup. I'll take any. Not interested.
That's an habit of no problem with Motherwell winning a cup. Martin
right, we're all agreed. Thank you.
Martin might, but I wouldn't. And obviously, I'm never going to say no to Rangers winning a cup. But
Martin loves us really.
No.
I'll turn them. Don't worry.
But that cup that Rangers win, I would just hope comes alongside the league title, Alex. I think you're 1 to 12, Alex. Your predictions.
So obviously, no guesses who I'm going to put top. So it'll be, I reckon Rangers win the title this year. Celtic in second, close by. I'm actually going to throw Hibs. I think Hibs will get third this season. I think it'll then be followed by Hearts in fourth. I'm going to go, this is where it starts to get, I think Aberdeen will be fifth. I think, see the way that they played yesterday, see if they keep that up. I'm going to put Motherwell in the top 6. Dundee to go down 100%. I actually think 11th place will be Kelly. Then it'll be Falkirk and Livy above them. I think that the way that it's going to go, it'll be a tough battle down there. And then and then Dundee United to 7th. So
where have you got St Mirren? Sorry, 8th.
8th, aye.
Whoa, that's a drop off for the Saints, isn't it? The buddies have dropped out the top 6 here. I can certainly see of that. Jim was begging me not to do predictions ever, obviously, because of how tremendous I am at them, as the weekend showed. I'll give you mine just quickly. I hate myself. I think Celtic probably will win the league. I think it'll be much closer than it has been. I'm not sure Russell Martin's going to be able to do enough in his first season, but it's certainly going to be a lot closer. And then I think Rangers will probably win it next season, personally. So there'll be 8-10 in a row. Camden. Rangers to finish second.
I'm the same. I'm done. I need to go.
Rangers to finish second. I agree with you, Alex, on Hibs. I'm going for Hibs third again. I can see them. European might come into a factor for them, but I just if they get through, obviously in the Conference League. But I think they'll be third. I'm however slightly disagreeing with you because I'm taking bold steps. I'm going St Mirren to finish 4th. I think they're going to have a good season, and I think they'll nick a wee European spot. They deserve it for all the hard work. So maybe that's just hope rather than anything else. I'm then going for Hearts in 5th, Motherwell to finish in 6th, Aberdeen, I'm going to put in 7th because I'm not convinced by them, and today proves that. I'm then going to have Dundee United in 8th, Falkirk in 9th, Kilmarnock sitting in 10th, Livy 11th, and I think Dundee. It is a unanimous clean sweep that Dundee are going to be relegated. So that probably means they'll finish top 6 now, because that's the type of we have. But I think Dundee will go down. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see who has egg in their face at the end of the season, and I'm sure Peter appreciates that very much, Graham. I couldn't give you more.
Thank you, Graham. Appreciate your kind words.
That's what we want on the Scottish Football Show, though, Graham. We want fans from other shows to come on, and I know because it's seen as a Rangers podcast, it can be difficult for people, but genuinely we love that discussion and engagement. That's why we love having guys like you in the comments as well, Graham, and Peter in the show. We had Ross last season, was an Aberdeen fan who was on for the first half. By all means, Peter, Graham, if you ever feel confident enough, do email us at rangersrabble@gmail.com, and we can see about getting you on as well. We'd absolutely love that. But that'll do us. We are done because we've all got beds to go to. We've got work in the morning. That's been a marathon show, that 2 hours. My thanks to Peter and Alex for joining me. That has been a superb effort tonight, boys. Thanks to everybody in the comments who's joined us with superb engagement again, as usual. Thanks to Jim again for his super chat. Yep. The Sniper, you're too late. I'm wrapping the show up. Hello and goodbye. But Martin will be back with you at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for your morning rabble. You'll be able to take part in that show as well. It's a sort of phone-in style. And then the big one after the afternoon rabble, of course, at 12:30. The game tomorrow night, Victoria Pilsen. Alex will be here for the watch along. I'm not sure who you're on with, Alex, but he will definitely be here. And then you'll have obviously the build up before that and the reaction straight after the full time whistle to what we're all hoping will be a good night for Rangers, and then loads more besides that during the week. We'll be back next week, back in our normal time slot. I think we'll be back on the Sunday rather than Monday, although we might continue with a Monday. Let us know if you enjoyed it on a Monday. But we'll certainly be back next week to review the second match day. But until then, enjoy what is left of your Monday evening, and we will see you very,